So, you have been playing Elden Ring this week, and now you've decided that it is time for you to souls up your Friday night D&D game. Good for you, but also, why not just wait until the Dark Souls RPG is out at some point later, maybe this year or next year or at some point after that? Well, I'll tell you why, because they may know exactly what they're doing and have all the correct licensing, but my name's Sam, and I have a really vague grip on reality that has been warped by 10 years of playing Souls-likes. And because of that, today I'm going to share with you 2 tips and a homebrew rule that you can integrate into your D&D campaign overnight to tingle your taste buds with the sweet, sweet taste of MSG, Miserable Souls Games. Aside from stamina management and the miserable you died screen, what really sets Souls-likes apart from other games is their artistic direction. They are all set in worlds which are on the brink of dying and provide you with the opportunity to save that world or frankly just let it keep on going over to the edge until it eventually drops off. And that is awesome. Imagine if you could get rid of all of your worldly woes by just not rekindling the first flame. That's the kind of agency I aspire to. But what I also think is great is the whole world reinforcing the misery of a time-limited existence. And so when you're trying to drop your players into a Souls-inspired campaign, the thing you have to remember is the trope of the Forgotten Kingdom. The crux of this is building a world which acts as evidence for the desperation of the people having come before you to try and prevent what is happening from happening. But at a fundamental level, it also acts as testament to their failure in doing so. Look at Gwyn or Old King Vendrick or the Soul of Cinder. The whole world is built around their failure, and they themselves are the epitome of that failure. They are soulless husks, desperately trying to achieve what they couldn't in life, and still failing no matter how hard they try, until you come in and put them on their arse. So, when building your world to get that soulsy feeling, you need to integrate evidence of the inhabitants of the world having tried to fix the problem, and now they've come to pass. They are no more. Huge vacant gothic towers, foes which are simply doing what they were ordered to do before it was all over. A constant sense of foreboding that you're retreading the steps of the heroes of yore, and that like them, you're going to fail too. And that last one can be in the form of equipment that's been lost that tells the story of the person who was there before, scraps of notes, useful items just out of reach when they're needed, in the palms of people incapable of using them. Combining those 3 features is the best way to perform environmental storytelling, and that's the purpose of the world. It's to drive your players forward in their understanding of what's going on. Everything has a reason for being there and has a history. So, we have a disappointing gothic world on the brink of extermination. Now, how do we fill it, and who do we fill it with? Well, what we could do is put some sad people in it, and then dot around some happy people, but then have people realise they're an illusion. Or you could think about the stories which everyone has been involved in. The cleric who failed to cure the sick and was driven mad by that fact. The ranger desperately seeking out a way to restore their humanity and becoming more hollow in the process of doing so. Or the great wolf, sworn to guard its master's grave in a desperate hope to prevent someone else from befalling the same fate. These are all fundamentally sad characters, but they're not just sad because the world is bad. They're melancholy characters because they have no agency, and due to the fact that they are duty-bound, they lose themselves and their lives. The real tragedy is the fact that they are simply destined to die, but not in some grand fashion. They die because that's what was always going to happen in the world, because at some point the world will come to an end and them inside it. And frankly, what is the worst fate? Being killed by the chosen undead, or dying as the first flame dies out? The point I'm trying to get at here is that when you're populating a world which you want to feel like Dark Souls, you need every character and being inside that world to reinforce the hopelessness of the situation that everyone is in. And on top of that, characters who are destined for misery are a great way to hurt your players far more than any Tarrasque ever could. And finally, to avoid simply just playing a dark fantasy game, we need to introduce the most famous Souls phenomenon. An easy bit of homebrew here. All we're going to do is start our players with half of their maximum health. They're hollow. And we're also going to give them a number of humanity points equal to half of their highest attribute modifier. When they run out of health, they can choose to burn one of these humanity points to become more hollow, but come back to life prior to the encounter, with the knowledge that they as a player have collected of how that encounter functions. If this happens repeatedly and they lose all of their humanity, they will hollow completely, and their character can appear within that encounter as a hollowed undead for the next player character to come up against in the future. That's how they lose it, but how do they get that humanity back? Well, if they defeat a boss, they gain 1 humanity and recover to 100% of their health. Easy. Death shouldn't necessarily be an inevitability when you're playing Dark Souls if you're cautious and a good player, but it's likely, and by implementing this homebrew rule, you're providing your players with the opportunity to learn from death, which I think is really the core of the Souls-like experience, and what makes it so fulfilling when you finally overcome the challenge that you've been pushing against for days, weeks, months, or years. Enjoy making your players suffer, and I'll see you next week for the next episode of Dungeon Brews. Trust me, it's in your destiny.